Hello class, and welcome to our new and improved Double Dragon walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and we are just about capping off revisiting some of the earliest games we covered here on Video Games 101 before we had the more stringent standards that we have today. As a result, we have a better walkthrough than ever on this tough but fair beat-em-up classic. In terms of difficulty, I'm once again going to give Double Dragon, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 5 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to throwing your controller across the room, probably because you stepped one pixel too far and lost one of your 3 precious lives just like that, not to mention triggered one of the most obnoxious falling animations in any video game. That face is insult to injury on top of losing a life, but don't worry, we've got more tips than ever before for helping you survive Willy's throngs of gang members to rescue Marion. Blaze will once again be detailing the moves we're picking up as we get them. Gary's got your boss beaters, and Fluff's sharing a couple hacks and glitches and some fun facts about this title as well. So let's run the intro, no PSAs this time, and get into this Double Dragon walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, as we begin a new game, note the difference between the two modes of play here in Double Dragon. Mode A is the classic beat-em-up style, which we're going to be doing. Mode B is kind of a rudimentary Street Fighter type fighting game. Controls are always a little stiff for my liking, but that's the difference. As unfortunately for the second time on this channel, Marion takes a fist to her gut here at the top. But don't worry, we'll be busting some deserving teeth very shortly as we take a look at the controls here in Double Dragon. Gotta know how to bust those teeth. B is kick, A is punch. Hit them together to jump. We can pause with start, double tap left or right to headbutt, and move around with that D-pad, and we'll be gaining more moves every 1,000 points, which we earn. Blaze will talk about those as we unlock them. But let's take a look now at the Briggs notes for this Double Dragon walkthrough. The keys to beating this game: first, punch to level up on the first 2 missions when the enemies are relatively easier and you get health refills between each section of the level with more frequency. Now, kicks have a lot more range to them, which is why they're ideal for disarming an opponent like we just did with that Linda right there. But every kick is only worth 15 points when we make contact versus the 20 we get with every successful punch, so a bit more efficient for grinding points. But Fluff's going to share a nice little hack we can use in the next stage for grinding points very quickly and very easily. So secondly, elbow, elbow, elbow. Blaze will talk about that once we unlock the elbow. And lastly, engage your enemies from above when possible. As they're trying to get in position to attack you, that leaves them open to attack, and then you can get in your move of choice on them. So just a nice little trick. But we just got our second move with 2 hearts. Let's go to Blaze.
It's Blaze's best here in Item Sky. Alright, at level 2, we've unlocked our first new moves in the uppercut and roundhouse to end your combos with a punch or kick respectively for 10 points each.
Thank you, Blaze. If we use the whip, we get 30 per, by the way, but 3 hearts, Blaze.
Alright, at level 3, the jump has been replaced with the jump kick, and now this will earn you 12 points in addition to knocking your opponents on the ground.
Thank you, Blaze. Yeah, the jump kick is actually the safest way to disarm your opponents. Safest way to get any enemy on the ground. It just doesn't do a lot of damage, unfortunately. And then the whip does too much. I like the 30 points, but anyone ever do this, by the way? The little elevator trick? Just be careful not to walk down in that spot. Take you straight to the underworld. Cost you a life. You'll notice as we enter a new area here, they'll top off our health. I don't know if Billy housed a chicken leg or something off screen, but always associate chicken legs with these beat-em-up titles, always finding them in barrels or bunches of tires. I don't know, it's Final Fight, but anyway, a sorta boss here. Just like to stun the Abobo at the edge of that conveyor belt for a very quick and easy kill right there. Don't even need to bring in Gary for something quite so simple. But anyway, I teased it earlier. We can get in some last-minute punches here, but there is a very effective hack here early on here in Double Dragon where we can grind a lot of points. And I don't mind using this either because it's so easy to grind these points, honestly. through these first 2 stages, but let's just go ahead, do it in the game, and we'll have Fluff explain it. So let's bring him in for the first time today, our resident fact finder, Fluff.
I didn't mention this in our initial class, but there's a little glitch hack here midway through the second mission in Double Dragon, which allows you to accumulate level points very quickly. To do this, after climbing down the right side of the fence, stick to the top of the screen and walk over to trigger an enemy to spawn in. Retreat back to the fence and begin climbing when that enemy is just past that vertical beam in the background. Retreat to the left until you've scrolled the enemy off the screen and then some. Then return and begin attacking in the spot where that scrolled off enemy was standing, and you'll hear that satisfying sound as if you're making contact with an enemy, while your point total goes up with each hit at a total commensurate with whatever move you're using. Reportedly, you can also do this with the Lindas to the right on the ground level while you scroll them off the screen by climbing up, then returning. But this is a much more reliable method in my experience.
Thank you, Fluff. We're using the bat right here for 25 fur, but getting a lot of levels, Blaze. How about level 4?
Alright, at level 4, we've unlocked grab moves. Very effective against most of our opponents. Abobos are off limits. That's a big target to try to grab, but to do a grab move, stun your opponent, then push towards them. Just push forward. Note that you'll automatically do this sometimes as part of your kick move, but once you have him grabbed, you can use the kick button to do knees to him, or you can toss him with the A button. The ultimate combo is doing 3 knees, because if you do 4 in a row, they'll fall down, but 3 knees, followed by a throw, that deals out the maximum amount of damage.
Thank you, Blaze, and I just want to add, be careful not to come out too far when you come out to attack that Shadow Warrior, as it were. Actually, that kind of works, but sometimes you'll accidentally trigger that extra William to come out, and that kind of throws the balance off, but tips on chin, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beater.
There are 3 ways to deal with this first Chintai we've encountered here in Double Dragon. First, you can fight him the conventional way, where I recommend kicks or elbows if you've unlocked him, to keep him at a distance, as he's deadly if you try to get close with punches. Second, and perhaps the most satisfying method, if you've got at least 4 hearts, at this point, is to stun and grab him, then toss him over the side to the right. My personal favorite is to exploit the famous glitch of simply scrolling him off the screen by climbing back down a couple ladders as soon as he appears.
Gotta do that, right? It's a classic. Thank you very much, Gary. For those who grew up with this game like I did, I mean, how amazing was that to discover that when you figured that out for the first time? Pretty cool feeling. Probably the opposite feeling of taking a knife in the butt as you're jumping off of a tree. That's what that William just experienced right there. Be very mindful to not get hit by one of those daggers. They do a lot of damage. Just do a little sidestep right there, or even better, do a jump kick before they can get it off. Nice little hack I like to do right here is to go to the bottom right of this area, and then once the screen stops scrolling, just tap left to turn around, and then stun one of these Chintais with your kick, grab them, and toss them. You'll find you're just close enough to the water right here, off screen, that you can toss them in for very quick kills on these Chintais, which can be a handful otherwise, but we'll talk about how effective those elbows are on them in just a second, but stick to the top of this bridge and jump across and do one more jump kick immediately to disarm that William. Throwing that knife back at the William on the other side who poses no threat is completely optional, but it makes me laugh. And we can toss these guys in the drink right here, but anyway, let's try to catch up here with move number 5.
Alright, at level 5, we can now hit our opponents when they're down, literally. No, we get no points for this, but it's very effective. To do this, make sure they're on the ground, and then push down from above them to straddle them. You can straddle most of your enemies. You can't do it to a Bobo, still off limits, but once you're straddling your opponent, you can deliver 4 face punches with that A button. If they're not weak enough, they'll throw you off when you try to straddle them, but once they're close to death, you can do that to get some extra hits in, and that's the ultimate combo right there on top of everything else that you're doing.
And now finally that second Briggs note, here to talk about the elbows. Let's bring him back in. Blaze, how about him?
Alright, at level 6, we unlock my move of the game, the elbow. This is actually worth 3 points for what it's worth, but the amount of damage it does is so much more important. To do the elbow, simply face away from your opponent, no matter who they are, and tap that A button when they're nearby. you'll deliver a deadly elbow to the face. These do a lot of damage, so hence my move of the game.
Yep, definitely the preferred way to deal with these abobos. Thank you, Blaze. And when you have the space, the three-dimensional space, if you will, to move up and down, makes for a deadly combo against those abobos. But now dodge this Tactataz, to quote the VHS-based game players tapes from my youth, which are the inspiration for this channel. That's a fact. Not sure if anyone's familiar with those, but yeah, it's very generic overviews of NES games from back in the day. Gotta mention here, in case you were curious, if you go down in that pit, it ultimately just starts over the level. Once again, just goes in a circle, so make sure you use those platforms. You can get by with skipping that third one altogether if you play it just like that. Jump at the very edge. And here we're just doing some well-timed elbows to put these Chintais on the ground. Make sure they don't surround you on both sides. After 3 elbows, you can go ahead and move in for the straddle and the face punches, which Blaze described earlier. Mind the dynamite here, does a lot of damage should it make contact with you. If you don't walk into it, he'll just throw it at your feet, at which point you can pick it up and throw it back at them, hopefully actually making contact with them. It's a strange brand of dynamite, which every time you pick it up, it resets the fuse seemingly, so something to keep in mind, I suppose, and make sure you toss it with a little bit of distance. For whatever reason, if you throw it right in their face, if they're right up on top of you, it does a lot less damage. Doesn't make any sense, but... So right here, I always like to jump off the edge, but if you just do the little bit of a drop, it doesn't look nearly as cool, but it's a lot safer, as you can see. You don't have to worry about the rocks behind you. You can take your time getting across right there, so... Just something to mention as kind of an alternate method for getting through that little area right there. You're free to do a full jump off of the top. Just mind the toxic waste coated abobo waiting for you at the bottom of this pit right here. His little shorts are still bleach white. I'm not sure how he managed that. I guess he took them off when he was swimming laps in the toxic waste pool or whatever it was. We got one more coming in on the right before we can enter that hole in the wall right there. I believe I've opened it up to questions in the past, maybe in our initial class on this game, as to what accounts for that green color of this abobo. I'm going to stick with my toxic waste angle, but maybe we don't want to know. Here we got a number of Lindas to deal with. It's very satisfying to do the elbow on them because we can take them down with a single elbow. Very satisfying move to take down any enemy with a single hit, but they'll make it difficult for you. You'll find that when you don't have the ability to move up and down like we don't right here, that the next best thing is just to kind of inch away from your opponent and throw in those elbows, and then they have to keep repositioning so they can get close enough to hit you, and then they walk into your elbows. So another reason I wanted to revisit this class is to offer a better solution for the beginning of Mission 4 here, which is very cheap. You can burn a lot of health, a lot of lives at the start. So at the start, do not move up or down, just go straight to the right and position yourself right here so that your kind of the front of your hair is just before the end of this brick. And the pattern is random. What we're doing here is waiting for that bottom left brick to come out, at which point we're going to jump kick over it. Right there. Just inch a little bit forward. You can see the position once again. We're just before the edge with our hair of this brick, and then wait for that bottom brick to come out once again. Repeat the same strategy on this side. This is more or less the positioning here. And by doing it this way, you're essentially making it so that the bricks behind you will no longer come out, and virtually the only brick you need to worry about is the one which is pretty much on the top right at that point. But if you do it like that, you can oftentimes get through without taking a single hit, which is great because every hit you take from those bricks takes away a quarter of your health. So you have just a couple of those smack you around, that puts you in a much more difficult position for dealing with certainly these chins, and then you got some ropers coming up at the end of the stage. But I like to take full advantage of that pit right there. Watch out for the knife throwing Chintais, obviously, but don't even give this abobo the time of day. Just got back from the cleaners too. Like, you got the toxic waste out of his skin. Good for him, but don't have to fight him. Yeah, if you go to the right, the level just loops again, so we're going to avoid that at all costs. Quit while we're ahead on that brick section. Here I just like to post up and grab these ropers, get them in the little combo right here. Just be careful you don't get too close to the edge, because obviously they know their jump kicks. They like to use them. We can skip a lot of the Williamses here too as well. By the way, speaking of jump kicks, forgotten. Never went back to Blaze for that final one, so Blaze?
Alright, the final move which we unlock here in Double Dragon is the spinning roundhouse, a very powerful kick. This is just simply hitting B when your opponent is stunned, and it will trigger automatically. It takes a little while, so sometimes the opponent can get out of the way or duck or do a jump kick or other attack on you before you can get it off, but if you can make contact, a very powerful move.
Thank you very much, Blaze. Just be very careful not to get too far to the edge of any of these surfaces before you make a jump, but certainly on these elevators. Usually safer to just go ahead and jump. He won't know what to do, by the way, if you just jump on the elevator. Yeah, it's safer to jump from the middle of the elevator than the sides. Getting too close, by the way. Just found out you can make that jump for what it's worth. Still learning things about this game. Alright, so we have one last little rush here of baddies before we take on the final pair of bosses, actually, in this game. So let's go to Fluff and get a kind of a fun fact about this game. Bit of a little glitch here. Fluff, what do you got for us?
If you've played this game a few times, you may have noticed that you can pick up a weapon just as it's about to disappear off the screen after defeating the last bad guy of that group, and it will stick around in the form of some very odd pixel combinations. The strangest instance of this is late in the game, where you get a rush of various baddies, one of which is a pair of Chintais. Grab the knife one of them brings in just as the last Chintai disappears, and it will take the form of a strange-looking melee weapon. Allow the weapon to be knocked out of your hands by the Lindas, and repeat it when you defeat the last one to once again see that weapon take on a new shape. You can keep doing this all the way to Jimmy himself for some kind of marbled rye or meat-based melee weapon. I don't know.
Yeah, what do you see in that class? It's like looking at a cloud. Everyone sees something different, but anyway, we're coming up on the penultimate boss, so let's go to him a little bit early for some tips, some strategies on dealing with Willy. Gary?
Boss beater.
As I mentioned in our initial class on this game, attempting to elbow Willy will result in you getting shot in the spine. It's much safer to lure him down to the bottom of the screen, then move slightly above him, kicking as he moves to align with you. You'll get some nice kicks in on him, and you'll likely stun him before he can get a shot off, allowing you to grab and throw him to the floor after a series of knees to the face. Note that you can give him some face punches to finish him off if he's weak enough, typically after about 3 to 4 good combos. There's another strategy which makes Willy ridiculously easy. Simply allow him to come down to you, and you'll find when he fires his gun, the bullets won't properly line up with you and they'll miss you. Take this opportunity to get a good kick and grab combo in. When he gets up, he'll likely try to smack you with his gun, at which point you can throw an elbow his way. As long as you don't adjust up or down or get hit by a melee attack from him, his bullets can't hit you. If he does knock you down, readjust and let him do his interpretation of lining up with you once again to avoid getting shot once more. It's cheap, but effective.
Love getting those face punches on him, but now a target which we cannot get face punches in, nor grab. Gary, take us home.
Boss beater.
Alright, Jimmy gets my award for toughest boss here in Double Dragon. Now some people like to trap him in one of the corners, but he's got quick reflexes to get an instant jump kick off on you, or duck under most of your attacks. Where were we when he learned that move, by the way, but you can either try staying above him and getting some choice kicks in when he tries lining up with you, even slightly hovering up as you kick to keep him off balance, or you can just throw endless elbows knowing that when you trade with one of his jump kicks, if you do, he's taking far more damage than you're receiving. Keep this up, you'll take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Excellent work. How about you, class? What is your strategy for dealing with Jimmy right here, our much paler brother? Anemic look. Are you okay, Jimmy? I mean, he's clearly not. He's trying to kill us and steal our girlfriend, kidnap our girlfriend. Snow Lake, as we'll see in the, well, we'll see it in just a second, but love those elbows, as Gary mentioned. It's a good trade, especially when we can stunt his little jump kick right there. But Gary makes a good point. We were presumably trained by the same martial arts instructor and master. So where were we on Duck Day? How come we don't know that move, you know? We need Doc Lewis in here to teach that one to us, but there it is. Cat under the table. Fluff appreciates that. We'll bring Fluff in for one more Fluff fact in just a second. Don't love that our brother's vest is hanging up right there. Guess we won't read too much into it. He is dead after all, but we were a bit too busy this time to get any more Fluff facts in, so Fluff, how about you share one with us now while I begrudgingly play the Fighting Mode B here in Double Dragon.
I shared a couple hacks you can use to make this game a bit easier earlier, so now I thought I'd once again share some basic facts about the game, and at the risk of plagiarizing myself, I'm going to mention what I shared during our initial class on this game. Double Dragon's origins trace back to the mid-1980s, when series creator Yoshihisa Kishimoto was working for Data East as a game director for Laserdisc-based hardware-enabling video games, like Cobra Command and Road Blaster. Dragon's Lair is probably the prime example of a game which utilized this technology. Rival video game developer Technos headhunted Kishimoto after these games came out, wanting to create a similar game of their own. Though Kishimoto took the meeting, he instead pitched a completely different idea, more of a conventional video game inspired in equal parts by his love of Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon and his own days as a troubled youth. Technos liked the idea, and Kishimoto went on to create Neketsu Koha Kunio-kun, released as Renegade in the West. As an aside, Technos created subsequent games using the characters from Kunio-kun, including the excellent River City Ransom, which Kishimoto was otherwise unaffiliated with. We did a class on that game, by the way, which you can check out by the playlist in the description. After the moderate success of his first game with Technos, Kishimoto got to work on a follow-up, combining that same love for Enter the Dragon and a suggestion from his superiors at Technos that his next game should be a two-player game to make more money at the arcade. Double Dragon was born. While it wasn't the first game of its genre, Double Dragon is often credited as being the first game which put beat-em-up titles on the map, ushering in countless similar classics from Sega's Streets of Rage to Capcom's Final Fight.
Classics all. Thank you very much, Fluff. And while I'm not necessarily enjoying Mode B, I can keep this going for just a bit longer if you've got one more Fluff fact for us.
I talked earlier about series creator Kishimoto's love of Enter the Dragon. Therefore, it should be no surprise that Double Dragon's main protagonists, Billy and Jimmy Lee, got their surname from none other than Bruce Lee himself. Even some of the names of popular enemies from the Double Dragon series are derived from that movie, including William and Roper, who are two of the main characters from Enter the Dragon. Even the Linda characters are said to be named after Bruce Lee's widow, Linda Lee Cadwell. Originally named Hammer and Spike on the arcade cabinet on its initial release, the names Billy and Jimmy were established for the two protagonists for the NES version of the game, with Billy arguably being named after Lee's character Billy Lowe from his film Game of Death, a film which itself was a direct inspiration for another game we've done a class here on in Video Games 101 in Kung Fu, another beat-em-up classic.
Certainly is, and once again you can check out our class on that game and every class we've ever done here on Video Games 101 by checking out the playlist in the description. Excellent work today though, all my TAs, thank you very much. Thank you class for attending this one. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in this class. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. Love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind, really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment, why were those abobos so green class, or whatever you want to talk about. It's open season here in the comments section. But thank you very much for attending this one. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.